Good morning and welcome into the show. It is Thursday, January the 16th. Hope you're having a great morning so far. 8 a.m. on the East Coast, 6 a.m. out in the mountains, all time zones in between and around the world. Thanks for watching. This is our first week where we have actually added more destinations, more opportunities for you to watch the show and listen to the show. So you can now watch live on Twitter, YouTube, and in addition to the others, you can always watch on danielworkman.com. Thanks to everyone who's been watching and listening, following the show. We love you guys and we appreciate it. First story I want to get to this morning, before we have Phil Bakke on the show, is to look at this. I laugh, but it goes back to something I've talked about before, involving Ronaldo and Messi. It's a conversation I've had with my two boys as well. Sources: UEFA changed Team of the Year formation to include Ronaldo. UEFA changed their Team of the Year formation so that Cristiano Ronaldo could be included. European football's governing body announced the 11, which is based on fan votes, on Wednesday. The team was arranged in an unusual 4-2-4 formation, and sources told ESPN that was due to a desire by UEFA chiefs to ensure Juventus's Ronaldo appeared, despite the 34-year-old receiving fewer votes than fellow forwards Lionel Messi, Sadio Mane, and Robert Lewandowski. Ronaldo's inclusion and the formation change came at the expense of Chelsea midfielder N'Golo Kante, according to ESPN sources. Five-time Ballon d'Or winner Ronaldo, and we'll get back to the five-time Ballon d'Or winner because that goes hand in hand with this entire saga, joined Barcelona's Messi, Liverpool's Mane, and Bayern Munich's Lewandowski in the UEFA Team of the Year's front line, while Manchester City midfielder Kevin De Bruyne paired with Barca's Frankie de Jong in midfield. Ronaldo's Juventus teammate, Matthias de Ligt, joined Liverpool's Virgil van Dijk at center back, with the two Netherlands internationals flanked by Liverpool pair Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. Alisson got the nod in goal, meaning Liverpool had 5 players in the team, more than any other club. Well, I mean, geez, they went to back-to-back Champions League finals. They won this season. They finished 1 point off of first in the league. It's not surprising Liverpool had so many players in the UEFA Team of the Year. So this gets me to my main point when it comes to Ronaldo. It's part of the reason why he's won 5 Ballon d'Ors, and it's part of the reason why this has happened. Cristiano Ronaldo was a kid growing up who was desperate to prove himself, desperate to make it, desperate to make something of his name, of his career. And, if you see pictures of the scrawny little kid when he arrived at Sporting Lisbon, and then you see the man he is today, it is a drastic difference. The journey that he has been on throughout his career to reach the levels that he reached. And that aspect of Ronaldo is to be admired. The work ethic, the amount of effort that he put in and day out on his craft to make him into the player that he is, should be admired. He is well known for showing up early and staying late. That's what the best players do, and he has done that consistently throughout his career. So I'm taking nothing away from Cristiano Ronaldo, the worker. when I talk about this article or bring up this point, but I do want to say that up front. I mean, I think he has been an incredible talent, a really, really, really good player within the game. He is not all-time best. He is nowhere near all-time best. But in the absence of Messi, he probably would have been the best of this generation. But when you look at the pantheon of great players that have played this game, and you go through the Pelés, Maradonas, Cruyff, Zidane, the Brazilian Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo is in the conversation. He belongs in the conversation. He's not at the top of the list, and he's nowhere near the top of the list. But he's an incredible player, incredible talent, incredible work ethic, and all of those attributes. If we could get more players in the world following his work ethic, his commitment, his determination to succeed, the level and quality of play around the world would improve as more and more players put in that kind of work. It is an uncommon work ethic that Cristiano Ronaldo has. However, now saying all of that, giving that caveat, that tip of the hat, now we need to get into the conversation that I have with my two boys and this article and what happened with this UEFA best 11 goes back to something else about Cristiano Ronaldo, and that is for the same maniacal work ethic that he puts in to his on the field making of a great player, that work ethic to just daily make himself great. He has that same obsession with being recognized for that work ethic. And so he is a marketing machine. He is all about PR. He is all about promotion. He is always self-promoting, marketing himself, etc. Now, I don't have a problem with him doing that. But I think you have to recognize that happens, because that maniacal obsession with PR and self-promoting, in the same way that he has a maniacal obsession with, his on-the-field training, is the reason why he has 5 Ballon d'Ors. It's not because he was the best player in those 5 years he got the Ballon d'Or. When you go and look at statistics, you go watch the games that were being played, he was getting outplayed by Messi in most of those years. But he has been a self-promoting marketing machine, and you've had the best player of all time, the best player of this generation, who is for all intents and purposes, a recluse. He doesn't like to be in front of the camera. He's not a grand self-promoter. He doesn't want to be in your face. He'd rather be left alone. And so, because he does not have that same maniacal obsession with self-promoting and PR and, going on Instagram and making braggadocious posts and building this persona, because that's not who Messi is, in that vacuum Ronaldo has been able to build a mystique, a myth around his excellence. And I know this sounds harsh, but that is the truth. He is nowhere near as good as Messi. Nowhere near as good as Messi. But he's much better in his career. He's been much better than the rest of the world. But people have mistaken the fact that he's been so much better than the rest of the world that he and Messi must be, 1 and 1A, neck and neck. But they're not. Messi's that much better than Ronaldo. So you have Messi, you have Ronaldo, and then you have the rest of the field going down. It's not even close. But when you have the best player of all time, the best player in the world, who is not out beating his own chest, not out self-promoting, and you have another player that's better than the rest of the world. He's not as good as Messi, but he's a really, really good player who is out beating his drum, who is out proclaiming that he is the best, who is out proclaiming he's the best of all time, who is out, self-promoting and talking about his work habits, his training. I'm this, I'm that, I'm blah, 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 and I am the best, and I am. When you have someone that is marketing and you have someone who isn't marketing, that closes some of the gap in voters' minds. It closes some of the gap in the fans' minds because you're getting one messaging from a Ronaldo and you're getting really nothing from Messi. So when we look at Cristiano Ronaldo in context, he's nowhere near as good as Messi, but he has been so much better than Messi in self-promotion, in PR, in building that marketing machine around his name, his brand, his likeness. And for better, for worse, that has not been Messi's priority. That's not his personality. And I think, if Messi cared more about that kind of stuff, then I think he'd make it a priority. I just don't think he cares as much as Ronaldo. But Ronaldo cares because I believe deep down inside he knows the truth. He knows who Messi is, even if he doesn't want to admit it. And so he continues that PR push to make himself known as better than he really, really is. Speaking of making yourself known, there is a company that you need to know about. And if you don't know about them, you're going to find out right now. They are Ductic Brand, Duktig brand. Go to ducticbrand.com. If you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're a goalkeeper, maybe you're just a fan of the game, maybe you're a mom and dad, whatever. Go to ducticbrand.com, check out their products, check out their apparel. And when you do, you're going to place it in the shopping cart and you're going to order it and it's going to come into your house. You're not even going to have to get out of your house to buy it. Use promo code DWSHOW to get 10% off of your next order. Okay? So go to ducticbrand.com. Use promo code DWSHOW and you will get 10% off of your next order at ducticbrand.com. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Red Gringos Liverpool podcast and Seriously Loco El Paso Locomotive podcast, and you'll find them all over social media. Phil, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing really well, Daniel. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining the show. Before we get into those two podcasts, I want to first ask you, this is something I love to do when we have a guest on for the very first time, is to get a little bit of your origin story. Where did this love affair with the game of soccer, the game of football, begin for you?
It started actually a little bit later than most, I think, because I didn't play it from a young age, but it started in high school. Didn't really follow the sport, and a friend of mine invited me over for the Champions League final, and I didn't really know what that was. Didn't pay attention, and it just so happened to be the Istanbul 2005. That's where kind of my Liverpool fandom began that day, and then my hunger and just like wanting to learn more and more. It just kept growing from there, and brought that kind of led through advocate for those type of benefits here in the U.S. and now just trying to build something around a local club here in El Paso with El Paso Locomotive. So, it's just been kind of building one block on another.
So you tune in to is that when you were just hooked, like watching that you were like, that's my team, that's who I'm going to support, and I love this game. I want to know more about it.
Yeah, it was just it was love at first sight, quite literally. And it was just one of those moments where you even though I didn't have the full context of as it was happening, something special in that moment, and it felt like fate had brought me to Liverpool and in that moment. And yeah, it was just from there, I just completely fell in love with the game and just wanted to learn more and more.
So listening to you, it's apparent that you're not a native Liverpudlian. You're not a Scouser. So you pick a team. About how much of that aspect of kind of getting the backstory of Liverpool Football Club, how much of that kind of played into the aftermath?
Time learning about especially Steven Gerrard, and learning about his coming up through the club and being from Liverpool and all of that, and then finding highlights on YouTube and being able to watch back older matchups or older matches and see that it wasn't just this one moment in time for the club. It was going back into the 1890s when they were founded. Just that whole connection to the city and everything. It was started on Google. It turned into I started reading books, like reading about the history of the club, and just really because of that and how special the game became to me. I was like ravenously trying to learn everything I could to kind of catch myself up to speed with Liverpool. And now almost 15 years on from then, it's been now it's a deeply ingrained love, and I can't really get enough about Liverpool or learning as much as I can about the club and its history. So yeah, it's been a journey from there. And then I actually just over the holiday period made my first ever pilgrimage to Anfield, and saw the match against Wolves. So it felt like a seminal moment, I guess, in my Liverpool fandom.
So this summer, my wife and kids, we went to Europe for a few weeks, and in our first week over there, we kind of did this little blitz through some cities in Europe. So we, spent a day in Amsterdam, day in Paris, a day in Liverpool, spent the weekend in London. I am a Barcelona fan first and foremost, although Liverpool is my favorite team in the Premier League. So we're kindred spirits there. So we didn't get to see a match because it was July, but we did do the stadium tour. And went through, the whole headset thing and learning the history and walking around and taking pictures. And it is a really cool stadium, and the expansion they did with the grandstands, the main stands, it was phenomenal. And I know they're getting ready to do another expansion. I'm sure that will be done very well. Also, Fenway Sports Group have an ability. They've done that with the Red Sox and in Fenway Park. And you've seen it again here with Liverpool, to respect history but yet modernize and I think a very respectful way. I think what they've done with the stadium has been really, really nice and amazing. The one thing I wish I would have been able to do before the main stand had been redone was to do that whole iconic walk down the stairs to come back up into the stadium on the field kind of moment where you could touch the sign. Because that's gone. It's not there anymore. And you have all those iconic pictures in the, you'll never walk alone type of moment. And you don't get to really relive that, even though they have that picture up and it is right there before you go out. And one of the cool things on the tour, you got to go through the locker rooms and the press area and all of it to touch the sign. And so winning the Champions League in May, all of the tour guides were giddy, talking about how excited they were to start watching the team being able to do that. And so I think there was only one. I think it was just one member of the squad that was allowed to touch the sign before May, and that was Jordan Henderson, who was on the team when I think they won. It was like maybe the Capital One Cup or something like that. And so he was allowed to touch it, but no one else was. And so now obviously the whole squad who were a part of that incredible Champions League championship this past spring were able to now start doing that. But the stadium was amazing. The tour was amazing. I don't know if you got a chance to do that. If you didn't, I recommend next time you go, obviously go to a match, but then pick a day when there's a tour where you can kind of go through, because like the Carlsberg Lounge and going into the press area and the locker rooms and all that, it's just really, really rad to kind of go through all of that and see it, when you're allowed to go in those places where you can't get there on game day. So, what was it like, as a Suarez, Ronaldo, and Bale all score in the match? Got to see an unfortunate, and I still disagree with, red card on Sergi Roberto. But the match ended 2-2. But Liverpool, it basically kind of did this walk around the edge of the field and thank the fans kind of thing. And so you have Iniesta and Messi and all these guys, walking around the field after the match, celebrating, and it's a Classico night. It was magical for me. I've not been to a Liverpool match yet, and so we like I said, we did the stadium tour, and in the stadium tour, you kind of get a simulation of you'll never walk alone, but it's nothing like being in the moment, I'm sure. What was that moment like for you? You've watched on TV, you fell in love the night they won in Istanbul, and then you go over and you get a match. It doesn't matter who they were playing. You're in the stadium. The song comes on. Tell us what that was like.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I would say it's something that, as you said, you watch it on TV, and you don't really know what the feeling is of being there. And so just from the moment, I walked out from the concourse out towards the seats, and the stadium kind of opens up in front of you, and the pitch is just looks immaculate. Everything's like just amazing. And then you're in a situation where, there's a lot of talk on Twitter about, sports attendance, reporting, especially everything and remember each moment, how it felt. And just, you're trying to kind of take it in while still living in the moment, so, my wife was there, and she is not as rabid of a fan as I am, and so she was like, "I want you to experience things. So if there's anything that you want, like pictures, video of, like, just let me know." And I was like, "Well, I would really love a video of You'll Never Walk Alone." So I put that on social media, because it is one of those things where you try to kind of experience what it is, and I now I'll have that memory forever. It's Liverpool did go, they won the game. It was a kind of controversial game, two VAR interventions and stuff like that. So I got to experience the the current English football experience of celebrating a goal and then not celebrating it, and then celebrating it again when VAR gives it. And so a bit of a strange experience in that sense during the game, but it was just, from start to finish, the locals were super helpful. Everyone was super welcoming, just showing us around and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just a great experience, and I hope that I'll be able to get back sooner rather than later.
So, curious. I know when it's not a match day, it's easy to get around the stadium, and part of that tour is you see it on TV, you know about it. If you know anything about Liverpool and the Premier League, that they have their local derby rival, Everton, is like you could throw a baseball and hit the stadium at Goodison Park, less than a mile away. And you can see that from the stadium tour as well. Did you get a chance while you were in Liverpool to make the walk from Anfield over to Goodison Park to realize you have two historic Premier League clubs, and they're the brief nature of the trip? Unfortunately, I just was literally walking around Anfield for a couple hours, like prior to the match, just kind of taking in everything and watching the buses come in for the teams and all that stuff. Just trying to experience the whole match day. But yeah, it's kind of, I grew up outside of Chicago, and so we have, in Chicago, Cubs, White Sox in baseball. And so it kind of reminds me of that, because there is that local rivalry, even if it isn't intense in terms of both teams competing against each other. Especially, recently Liverpool's been dominant in that respect, but those local rivalries drive so much of life in the city, and it is just crazy to see these two teams, and with the history between them as well. As I'm sure you saw on the tour the fact that John Holding, who founded Liverpool, was a board member of Everton and split off from Everton. So it kind of even adds to the rivalry a little bit, where it was a guy who helped found Everton who
went across or took Anfield from.
Went over and went in the Everton gift shop. So I have a job when I travel overseas or to any kind of soccer club, and that is pull and not get a scarf from each of the clubs to take back to my brother-in-law, because to me that they go hand in hand. It's the yin and the yang of Liverpool, and the funny thing is when we got done at Everton's store, the cab driver that picked us up to take us back to the city center was an Everton supporter, and you could tell he was because we had our Liverpool gear on that day. So, he's an Everton supporter, and he's, basically acknowledging the dominance and greatness of Liverpool, and then admits that his wife and all of his kids are all Liverpool supporters. And so he said it's been a rough few years in the house. And it's quite funny to hear that, because, I grew up in Alabama, and the Iron Bowl rivalry is, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter what's going on. That's just part of the vernacular and the culture, and that definitely reminded me of that, being in the city that day, even in that short cab ride. With my last question about Anfield before we move on, is when the stadium tour is over, you can kind of walk around the stadium, and one of the really cool things that is there is the memorial to the Hillsborough, to the 96, and it is at least, and like I said, I've not been there on a match day, but in the stadium tour, when we were there, that area of the stadium is sacred. It is quiet. There's not a lot of talking, and it's very much this like.
Because it's a moment that still to this day has trials ongoing and inquests, and it still affects the daily life of so many people in Liverpool and so many people around the club.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a really cool tribute, and I wasn't expecting that visceral, tangible kind of emotion feeling. I've been to the the 9/11 memorial in Manhattan, the footprint of the two towers. If you've not been, and you ever get a chance to do that, it is amazing. It'll take your breath away. To me, it's probably the greatest monument for any kind of tragedy I've ever seen. Whoever designed that footprint of the two towers in New York, to me, they should deserve and win every design award available. It was incredible. But this Hillsborough memorial, in a little bit smaller way, it's not as big and grandiose as that, but it still was very emotional, and to watch and observe other people take it in as well. I thought it was a really good and tribute by the club. So you take in the match. Obviously, I remember watching that match, Liverpool and Wolves. So you get to walk away that day a winner, and enjoy the festivities. And you mentioned at the top of the show, and as we introduce you, you're also a big supporter of your club there in El Paso. So when you fall in love with Liverpool and then you start looking at America, and I'm sure you're like many of us, you're going like, we're the best, sports country in the world. Why can't we figure it out with soccer? Why isn't it that big here? And now you've got a club there that you're supporting, so that your club there in El Paso can grow and thrive as well.
Yeah, it's an area of the country that I think a lot of people just kind of group a lot of Texas into one kind of giant blob. If they're not, if they're not from Texas, then it took me a while as a transplant to kind of really understand the culture differences of Texas, because you think 10-gallon hats and cowboy boots, and that's not really the culture of El Paso out here, in West Texas, and really is more so as a border city and a combination of El Paso and Juarez right across the border. It has its own unique culture, and so I think in any other type of system, as we talk about a lot on the on Twitter, it's a place that organically, I think, would support a top level team, and they are doing so. It's not quite the they didn't do it quite the right way at FC Juarez, because the Mexican Football Federation has their own issues, but they are now in Liga MX, and so having a team here in El Paso, it just seems like a no-brainer, and it wasn't my absolute favorite way of getting a team with a USL franchise, but I think the key now is that the passion for the sport have an outlet here in town, and opportunities for local players as well. And so just being able to connect, the fans with a team. So it was kind of easy for me to see, okay, there's a new team. There's going to be, a desire for content around the team. And I think, if we can make this kind of local groundswell of support, we can kind of hold the team accountable for remaining a representative of the city and of the culture of the city, because that's one of the things, bringing it back to Liverpool, is that's one of the ways that they kind of lost their way in the mid 2000s. Hicks and Gillette, American owners who didn't understand the culture of the team, didn't understand what the city was about. And, now Liverpool has Fenway Sports Group, and they get it. And they've done a really good job of reinforcing what makes the club so special. So I think in doing this coverage, we want to also make sure that the team, we kind of hold them accountable and keep them focused on being a team that's for El Paso and representative of the city. And they've done a really good job of not being kind of a cookie cutter, copy paste type franchise. They've engaged in the local community, and they've looked for local talent as well. So it's been a good start to things, and it's
that the USL and its setup and its system, NISA and their setup and their system, and MLS. It's every come and put out content and engage people and talk to people about that online as well as offline. But when you are in a local area and you want to see the sport grow, and you have a club, even if it's in, like you said, a franchise setup with the USL, having that opportunity to support that and to see it grow is a good thing, and to be a part of that, I think, is a really good thing, because if we really want to see the U.S. one day have sporting merit and a connected system of leagues like the rest of the world, I do think it's important for investors and club owners and clubs themselves, to see that is a light at the end of the tunnel. That is a good idea, that things are getting healthy, and I know that there are a lot of things that are frustrating and cause issues for clubs because of the current system, the dysfunction of the current system, and the dysfunction of the federation. But it's also nice to see clubs like in Vegas and others in other cities around the country who on their own take it upon themselves to say, look, I love the game. I'm going to support the game. And yeah, I get it. We have like a three-eyed monster that is the U.S. And that's a different level, different experience. But what have you seen come out of in terms of growth and the experience of attending matches there in El Paso?
It's great because I think you do have here in El Paso a true kind of footballing culture. People grow up around the game. They understand the game. And so what really impresses me is it has that European vibe or South American, Central American vibe of people watching the game through critical eyes and knowing what's in front of them. The same way that at Anfield, the referee, Anthony Taylor, was during that Wolves game was getting absolutely berated by everybody, every single home supporter throughout much of the match. But we have that same kind of critical view of the match, and people when they think a bad decision is made, like they're going to let the referee know about it, and so. It has the crowd has that feel of just it's a knowledgeable fan base. It's a group of people that, as I said, like grew up around the game and they know what they're watching. So as well. So there's just like a very kind of unique vibe, I think, around matches here that you won't really find a lot of other places in U.S. soccer.
In terms of the identity of the club, there is a culture, and you're kind of referencing that in El Paso. How important is it to you that a club feels like it is not just in the community, it is for the community, is part of, it is with, like the culture is part of the club itself? How important is that for you, and how well do you think El Paso's doing in regards to having the match day environment feel like it matches up with the culture of the city?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely vital that it not feel like, to me, a club should feel like, and we see obviously in American sports relocations and all this stuff. But to me, what makes clubs abroad so special is the fact that, if you took that club out of the city that they're in and put it somewhere else, it would feel out of place. Like it would feel unnatural. And just an absolute abomination for that club to be anywhere else. So I think what's important for them is that this area. So it should be to raise the level of player development here as well, which I think just feeds back into that culture, because if you're producing players from the area, like out of the academy, but being able to have that El Paso, that uniquely El Paso feel around the team and around match days, it just feeds back into reinforcing a culture that rewards the right things. And so they've done a pretty good job in their first year, obviously operating within the constraints of USL, but the club itself has done a remarkable job, I think, of being, and especially with the shooting that occurred here, the players were some of the first people in line to donate blood, and it was kind of amazing to see the response of not just from the club, and not just the front office making a donation, or the front office making a statement or something like that. It was literally the players out in the community, like giving back and So that kind of interaction and that kind of connection to the community, I think, goes beyond, like, well beyond the superficial of, this is where we play and this is who cuts my paychecks. There is that connection, and so the start is definitely there of building a genuine connection between.
Can't we have this? And so in that, I'm excited and happy that you got to do that, to take that in and experience Anfield on a match day, and take that in. Having done that now, after your season there in El Paso, you've got another USL season getting ready to start here in a couple months. What kind of effect do you think that will have on you when you go to these upcoming matches? Do you feel like you're going to be sitting there going, man, this is what it was like in Anfield, and have you thought about that aspect of comparing both experiences now that you've taken them both in firsthand?
Yeah, I think any I think my trip to Anfield will now kind of color all of my sports experiences differently, just because it is such a unique experience, and to take in any match. I went to a Fulham match while I was over there as well, and it was after the Liverpool match, and it didn't have this. It's middle of the season, not really a whole lot at stake right now. It's not going to make or break us type thing. And then you can see kind of the switch. The team was fortunate. And so it's always frustrating because, when you watch, like, even Liverpool or Barcelona, every single league game carries so much weight for somebody that's pursuing a title, or for a team like Watford, who are had been in the relegation zone. Each win, every point carries so much weight for their potential survival or relegation. So there is no small game. There is no, it's just X team, or, it's a midweek game or something like that. Every single match carries, like, such consequences. And that will always kind of inform how I watch American soccer, because I look out at the crowd and I'm just like, it could be so different. And it just, the way it is now, it will be, people will wait for the playoffs, and those will be the matches with the stakes, but we could be doing better.
Absolutely. I mean, just ask Ernesto Valverde, now former, thank God, manager of Barcelona, who was fired while being in first place, winning the league both seasons in charge, and still fired, thank God, because the guy just wanted to get rid of him. He should have gone along with the board and brought in someone else, because the change needed to be made. That was obvious. So, but you're right. In those environments, everything matters, and it does. It translates into a palpable feeling in the stadium, no matter what. And that is definitely something we are missing here. Speaking of missing, as we come to a close, I don't want people to miss your podcast. So how can people find your podcast? Are they on iTunes, Apple Podcasts? How can they listen to the Two Red Gringos and the Seriously Loco El Paso podcast?
Yeah, we're on all the major podcast platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, any of those, you can find both podcasts. Yeah, for the Liverpool fan, Two Red Gringos is myself and another guy who I met in El Paso, who started the pod. We're now in our 6th season doing that podcast. So it started at in the lean years, and it's obviously the vibe around it is a lot more positive.
Much more fun times now.
It's been much more enjoyable. And then Seriously Loco, you can search the same if you're at all interested in following El Paso Locomotive or USL. As the season, as you said, gets started. First week of March is the first slate of games. So off to another exciting season down here in El Paso.
Fantastic. And how can people follow you, connect with you on Twitter, social media, etc.?
Yeah, I am at Baki Balboa. That's Baki, and I talk pretty much a lot of stuff, but primarily.
To say anything publicly yet, but if there is good news, maybe around that time we can definitely have you back on and we can talk about the good news. Which I heard this weekend when they were discussing the Premier League that things stay the way they are. That good news could come in March. So we'll see. Yeah, but fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate it.
Pleasure was all mine, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That is Phil Bakke. If you haven't already, follow the guy. He's got great takes, and not just about Liverpool, and not just about El Paso, but also about American soccer. He's another important voice that you should be listening to. I know he also contributes to The Protagonist, and so follow the guy, connect with the guy as well. We need more and more like him speaking up and sharing ideas. How we get better. So speaking of getting better, Charity Water helps villages get better and places all over the world get better by providing clean drinking water. If you have not already, go to charitywater.org to learn more. We'll be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. You could.
Big thanks to Phil Bakke for joining the show today. Thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying it on the new platforms as well. You can always watch it on danielworkman.com and facebook.com/WRKMN. Catch me on Twitter or Instagram at Daniel Workman as well. Would love to hear from you if you've got any ideas or thoughts in regards to American soccer, global soccer, whatever. Thanks for watching the show. Look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow. Goodbye.